Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, to the 17th of March, 2025. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, as you know, I was away from the last week. I was at a conference last week in Sydney, so this is the first refuel since last Monday. Not a lot happened over the last week. It seems to be relatively quiet, but there are a bunch of updates to get through. But before I do that, I do want to just talk about my experience last week in Sydney. It was quite good. It was quite chill. It was quite different to, I guess, like the online arena of crypto, which is always full of drama. There was a lot of great conversations with a lot of great people talking about pretty much like all things Ethereum. And it was interesting because a lot of the discussions focused on where to from here. And I think I'm going to touch on this at the end of today's episode around where the ecosystem is today and where I see it going into the future. But the main theme of where to from here was that we know that basically the world is going to come on chain. We don't know the timeline of that. We do know that institutions and traditional finance are extremely interested in crypto, but on the flip side, it seems like a lot of the retail kind of crowd has either been tapped out at this point because they usually just come in for the speculative side of things, or are just not interested. And I think honestly, that tracks a lot for a number of different reasons. I think the major reason is that how interested are people generally in financial infrastructure, right? Not very. I mean, if you actually were to just ask 100 random people questions around finance, most of them would not know what they're talking about, and most of them would just be not be interested in it. It's just not something that people really spend too much time on. They usually outsource their, I guess, like financial decisions to banks, to kind of mortgage brokers, to funds, stuff like that, right? They don't necessarily do the work themselves because it seems very complex from the outside, which to be fair, it is, and it's kind of been constructed that way in that it's a lot more complex than it needs to be. But if you're talking about what the average person cares about when it comes to crypto, historically it's been essentially the speculative side of things, the get-rich-quick side, the gambling casino side, and that's only natural. Obviously, crypto goes beyond DeFi and goes beyond the financial use cases, but I really do think that the financial use cases, DeFi more specifically, is the biggest thing by far. Like, I don't think anything else is going to come close to matching DeFi's kind of total addressable market and beyond from there. So yeah, as I said, most of the conversations focused around institutional onboarding, traditional finance onboarding, and they're onboarding into DeFi, guys. They're not based, most of them are not doing, well, almost all of them are not doing anything outside of DeFi. Maybe they will in the future, and maybe there are pockets of projects and pilots happening here and there in things that aren't DeFi, but for the most part, they're very interested, obviously, in DeFi there. So that was basically most of the conversations I had last week. Got to meet a few people who listen and watch the refuel religiously, which is really great to see. I actually got a sneak peek of a new tool coming. I don't know how much I can say about this, but a new tool coming that will allow you to essentially compound your stake post Pectra with max EB. So it's basically a nice little interface that you can use to do this if you are running multiple validators. So that was really cool to see. And it's actually like not out yet, not live yet, but obviously because Pectra is not live yet, but it was just it was really polished, honestly, and I really liked getting that preview there. But keep an eye out for that. I'll definitely mention it when it goes live here. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that there won't be an episode on Wednesday of this week. Unfortunately, I just don't have time on Wednesday to do an episode like the whole day, pretty much. I can't even do it earlier. So yeah, no episode on Wednesday. There should be an episode Friday. I'm not going to promise there will be an episode on Friday, but there should be one on Friday. But anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's get into the news over the last week. So I think the biggest piece of news was probably around the test nets. So as you guys know, both the Sepolia and Holeshki testnets had issues with the Pectra fork, not with Pectra itself, but with the deposit contract, and Holeshki went through this whole drama and eventually began finalizing again, and it was a heroic effort to save it, but it seems now the plan is to sunset Holeshki and create a new testnet called Hoodie or Hoodie. It's spelled Hoodi. I'm just going to call it Hoodie, and that's going live today, basically. It's probably already live, and I'm just late to the news here on the refuel by the time you're watching this. So that's going live today. That is going to be forked, I believe, soon after it goes live, I believe on Friday, to Pectra, if everything goes well there. And then the Fusaka scope is also going to be finalized by March 31st, I believe. April 10th. The Fusaka scope will be frozen, or at least that is the goal. And there are deadlines around when to get the final EIPs for inclusion put forward. That's March 24th and March 31st, and then April 10th for the scope freeze there. So some big things on the core dev side. I think that in terms of Pectra timing, because that's definitely on everyone's mind at this point. Look, given that we're spinning up another test net and given that things aren't as, I guess, didn't go as smoothly as we would have hoped, I think we could probably say at this point the mainnet Pectra fork will happen in May, not in April. I know I did say that there shouldn't be too much of a delay, and I don't think it is really too much of a delay. I was originally giving mid-April, I believe. So yeah, 2 to 3 weeks from there. Maybe we get early to mid-May there, but not too much of a delay on that front. But the good news is that as I just mentioned, the Fusaka spec is going to be frozen, or aiming to be frozen, by April 10th. So even though we're not going to get Pectra till probably May, Fusaka can still happen by the end of Q3 because that timeline is still being respected there. So that's great to see. But obviously, understandably, the core developers aren't too keen on doing a Pectra mainnet fork in April at this point, just because of the fact that we've had issues with the test nets. Yes, not directly related to Pectra, but still, it all kind of falls in on itself there. So that's the latest updates on all of that there. I will say as well, on top of all of this, when it comes to Fusaka, as you guys know, there were really two things slated for inclusion, or at least considered for inclusion so far. That was PIADAS, which it seems to have universal agreement on. There's no drama around that. It seems like that's going to happen in Fusaka, and EOF. Now, there's been a lot of drama around EOF. There's a lot of people who don't think it should make into the network. I don't know where I stand on this. It's too, I guess, technical for me. It's more developer facing. It's not something that would necessarily affect me directly, so I don't have a strong opinion on it. But I am reading a lot of the takes that people have, especially on Twitter and in Discord channels and elsewhere. And it seems like, and I don't want to insult any core developers here, but it definitely seems like that EOF is not something that the network needs. The security trade-offs is not worth it. And it seems like one of the major reasons it's being pushed is because it's been worked on for so long. I think it's 4 years now or something like that. And the core developers that have worked on it don't want to see their work go to waste, which is totally understandable. I completely get that. But at the end of the day, I think network security and stability comes above everything else. And I think that if there are enough serious people saying and flagging, saying that, this isn't worth the risk, then I think we should take that on board, no matter the work that has been done on EOF for the last few years there. So as I said, I don't want to insult any core developers or belittle their work or anything like that. But from my point of view, I and from what I've seen, it seems like the people that are against it aren't against it for any other reason except the fact that they believe that it is just not worth the security trade-off here. It's not worth the extra risk because it doesn't bring that many benefits to the network. Now, what those benefits are and so on and so forth, I can't really go into detail about because it's quite technical. But if you want the pro EOF case, Ben Adams in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, who works on Nethermind, has been very vocally in support of EOF. So you can probably tag him in the Daily Gwei Discord channel and ask him all the questions that you need to or that you want to. He'll be able to better answer it than me there. But anyway, I think that's the latest core dev updates from the last week or so. A lot to digest there, but I'll keep you guys updated as things move forward from here. All right, speaking of core dev related things, Tomas, as you guys know, is one of the new co-directors of the EF. I believe he starts soon. I don't remember what his start date was. It's going to be any day now. Maybe it's today. I don't know. But anyway, he put a tweet out where he basically asked the execution layer client teams, he asked a bunch of the stakeholders within the community, starting with the execution layer client teams, what they think around various different things related to a 100 million gas limit for L1 by the end of year. So as you guys know, the gas limit was raised from 30 million to 36 million a couple of months ago. There is going to be a push to raise it to 60 million after Pectra goes live and after the history expiry goes live, tentatively scheduled for May 1st, but we'll see what happens there. I don't know if it's 100% May 1st or not, but that is what has been scheduled for. And then by end of year, there's been an appetite to go to 100 million. So that would be, I guess, from 30 million starting the year to 100 million, and over 3x increase in the gas limit, which is unprecedented for Ethereum. We have not done something that aggressive in a very long time. So Tomas is asking the execution layer teams, is this okay? He's asking the consensus layer teams, are there any challenges here with things like reorgs? He's asking the community, is it a bad or good idea? He's also asking the L2s, what are your gas limit targets or equivalents here? So I think that the community is very in favor of this, it seems like. And I think that obviously the community is a large kind of organism, if you will. There are people that understand the trade-offs, there are people that understand the impacts, and there are people that don't. From everyone that I know that understands the impacts, they're in favor of it, and everyone that doesn't necessarily understand the impacts but just wants to scale Ethereum are also in favor of it. So the community is pretty in favor here. Execution layer client teams seem mostly to be in favor. They don't really seem to be flagging anything other than state growth, which seems to be a solved issue mainly and doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. There's also an issue with things like chain stability overall, but again, that doesn't seem to be a big issue, and the consensus layer teams don't seem to be very concerned there. And the L2s, I mean, they're just pushing ahead as fast as they can and as strongly as they can on their targets here. So will we see 100 million by end of year? Not sure. I want to see 60 million first before I see 100 million, of course. And I want to see how the network handles that. I want to see how the network handles more blobs. Because if you put this all into context, let's fast forward to the end of the year, December 31st or whatever it is there. New Year's Eve rolls around, right? And we're into the new year. What does the network look like? Well, we could potentially have a network with 100 million gas limit, which, as I said, is 3x the gas limit from the start of the year. We could have a blob target and limit of with PeerDAS up to, I believe it was 48 blobs is the target there when we started at 3. So that is a more than an order of magnitude increase of the blob target there, and we could also have the L2s be higher than what they are now, much higher than what they are now by the end of the year. Does the network handle that? Can the network handle that? I think so. I honestly think so. Yes. There might be some people that kicked off and solo validators or full nodes that get kicked off because their bandwidth is just too low. The aim is to make sure that doesn't happen, but there is always, I guess, unintended consequences. We don't have 100% full view of the network. We don't know every stakeholder on the network. We do surveys. We ask people to speak up if they are going to be negatively impacted by something. But again, we don't have a full view of the network there. But I think the number one question to ask is, are we still retaining Ethereum's core properties of decentralization, censorship resistance, security, reliability? And I really do think we are, because with blobs and with PeerDAS, we're basically scaling blobs by we're putting a bit of extra load on the network, but it's not like we're putting a massive load on the network. We're not putting an order of magnitude load on the network because of the fact that with PeerDAS, we're basically doing data availability sharding or sampling, and we're essentially splitting up the blobs across the network. So not every node has to have every blob. So again, just because the blob capacity is going up by whatever it is, 15x is probably I think it's a bit less than that, but whatever it is there doesn't mean that there's 15x more, I guess, a strain on the network. Gas limit is, there is 3x, more than 3x more strain on the network from the beginning of the year. That's just how the gas limit works. So when you look at it from, I guess, kind of that perspective there, I do think the network can handle it, but we're going to have to see with regards to bandwidth constraints and so on and so forth there. So anyway, you can go give a read of all the replies that Tomas got. As I said, seems to be mostly in favor, some concerns here and there. But yeah, I think that we are aiming for this. We'll see if we hit that target by end of year there. All right, speaking of things that Ethereum should prioritize, Terrence here from the Prylabs team who builds the Prism consensus layer client put together a list of things that we should stay focused on as part of the Ethereum roadmap. Scale blobs with PeerDAS and full DAS, obviously, I think everyone is focused on that right now. I don't think there's any dramas around that. Scale execution with ePBS, delayed execution and shorter slot times. That goes into what I was just talking about with regards to the gas limit as well. Add entropy to block construction with Fossil, aka make censorship resistance way better on the base layer. Get faster finality. So single slot finality, I think, is out at this point. I was talking to some people about this at the event last week, actually. I was talking to Mehdi, actually, from Sigma Prime, who's a core developer there, about this. 3-slot finality seems to be the target now rather than single slot finality. So at the same time, it depends on what timing of the slot is. So if we get a shorter slot time, it actually ends up being single slot finality in the old slot time. So let me explain. Current slot time, 12 seconds, right? So if we had single slot finality would be every 12 seconds. So if we have 4-second slot times, which is the target, by the way, and have 3-slot finality, it's 12 seconds to finality. So technically, it's still single slot finality in the old paradigm. So regardless, 12 seconds is fine. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be complaining that it's not 1 second and there's 12 seconds. And keep in mind that not all finality is created equal. There are other networks out there that claim to have 1 second finality, but that's only technical finality. That's not economic finality. Ethereum has economic finality where that 2/3 of the stake, if someone tries to mess with the finalization of the network, 2/3 of the stake stands to be slashed, of the ETH stake stands to be slashed here. So it has economic finality here. And 3-slot finality, 12 seconds, that's more than enough. That's completely fine. That's great for things like interoperability between L2s. They can trust that the domain, the base layer is, it has got that finality there. It's not going to reorg or anything like that. So yeah, that's great. And then finally, ZK-fying the state transition with the Beam chain here, which is obviously a longer term roadmap item there. But I agree with Terrence. This is the stuff that we should be definitely focused on here. And I actually put a similar tweet out where I said, there are two main things that the Ethereum ecosystem should be focused on: scaling Ethereum to the world while keeping it decentralized and unified, ensuring that ETH captures as much of the value generated by Ethereum as possible. And then I said, if we do this right, we win. So to Terrence's points and even to Tomas's points, scaling Ethereum to the world while keeping it decentralized and unified, all those things that I just named are part of that effort. The unification efforts can happen extra protocol with the L2s and with the different standards there. And then the second most important point, because Ethereum is a network of Ethereum, the world computer, ETH as the money store of value, we need to make sure that ETH captures the value in various different ways. Now, I've talked a lot on the refuel before about the fact that ETH captures values in many different ways, not just fee revenue. It's used as collateral, it's used in staking, it's used as money, as a store of value, so on and so forth, right? So we want to make sure that ETH can continue to capture that value and all the value that it has been capturing as Ethereum scales to the world here. And I think we are doing that, but I think when it comes to the value of these assets, especially assets that are trying to be a money and a store of value, the narrative is just as important as the fundamentals, if not more important than the fundamentals. Because think about it for a sec, right? The narrative of Bitcoin, for example, is that it's digital gold. It's not digital gold because it's digital gold, right? It's digital gold because people have managed to spin a narrative, a story around it, and convinced a lot of people that it is that. So pretty much like most people in crypto believe that Bitcoin is a store of value and it is a digital gold, right? A lot of the people outside of crypto that are getting in, they're getting exposed to that narrative first and foremost. The ETF buyers, for example, the TradFi ETF buyers, these ETF issuers are going out to them and saying, well, Bitcoin is a store of value and it is a digital gold for such and such reason, right? Whereas, as I said, that's just a story that has been told and repeated ad nauseum. It's not something that has been divined on Bitcoin. It's not something that some godly authority has given Bitcoin. It's the same as normal gold, right? It's just something that we agreed upon as humans to give value to act as a store of value. Yes, gold has fundamentals, if you will, in that it is used in industries. Like I think 10% of its value comes from like industrial use and use within the economy, but 90+% of it is its value as a store of value, as something that exists outside of the fiat currency system. You guys know the whole story here. It's the same for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's just a digital version. But again, it's the story that's being told here. So it's just as important for us to tell stories around ETH and how it captures value. It is exposure to the on-chain Ethereum economy, right? From fee revenue, if you stake it, you get access to that, but also from the burn. You don't even need to stake it. You get the burn, benefits there. It's also a money within that economy. It can be used as a vanilla store of value regardless, because it has a predictable monetary policy. It is minimum viable issuance. It has a predictable security budget as well, which is something Bitcoin doesn't have. I've talked about this before, where essentially with Ethereum, you have strong guarantees that the network is going to be secure decades into the future because we have perpetual issuance. Yes, people will say, well, that means that Ethereum is not capped, which makes it a shitty store of value, but gold is not capped, guys, and it's still a good store of value. There are many things that aren't capped that are still treated as stores of value, right? And then when it comes to Bitcoin, I don't believe Bitcoin is going to remain capped forever, because it's going to have the security budget crisis in around 10 or so years there. But I've talked about that before. I'm not gonna rehash that there. But I do think that, as I said, it's very important to keep reiterating that ETH is as part of Ethereum as Ethereum the EVM is. I guess like the EVM can scope out what Ethereum does as an extension of its network there. And what it does as a network, it allows for smart contracts and stuff like that. So I think that we need to make sure that ETH and Ethereum are talked about equally. And that's something that Etherealize does a lot of. That's something that I'm seeing more and more people from the Ethereum Foundation talk about. And that's also something that the Ether Guild is doing. So this is a perfect segue into the Ether Guild. Now, I teased this the other week, but essentially this has been officially introduced. So this is a successor to the ETH is Money effort. So essentially what the Ether Guild is trying to be is an open source, I guess like an open community effort to rally people around Ethereum and different sub kind of categories within that, such as ETH as money, such as Ethereum as the world computer, such as regenerative finance, so things like the Protocol Guild, such as supporting educational content, and so on and so forth. So essentially, if you want to get involved with this effort, you can. It's completely open. You can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. I am actually involved with this effort. I am basically part of the founding team of this as an extension of ETH is Money here, and you can see the Daily Gwei is listed here. Sorry, that's the educational content here. The Daily Gwei is listed here as part of the Guild Treasury Management, alongside a bunch of other organizations such as Bankless, Grow the Pie, Etherealize, and Metal here. Metal.build here. So yeah, if you want to keep up to date with this, you can. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. But I'm loving these community efforts, guys, because obviously there's been a lot of talk around the Ethereum Foundation and what they should or shouldn't be doing. And I've also said that the Ethereum Foundation is good at certain things. They should keep doing that. They should keep doubling down on that and making that better. But then now we have Etherealize, which is good at doing things such as going out to Washington, D.C. and politicians, going out to institutions, going out to TradFi and evangelizing Ethereum and ETH to them. Now we have the Ether Guild, which is a community-run effort that can evangelize ETH, Ethereum, and everything in between to whoever they want. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to target anyone. It can be a community effort. It can target everyone, basically. And there's other efforts that pop up all the time. You know, Consensus is still going here. All the L2s have their own efforts as well, because they're aligned on making sure that Ethereum succeeds because it's better for them, and so on and so forth there. So yeah, loving seeing all these efforts pop up. But as I said, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Now, last up here, just wanted to talk about this new release from Paradigm. So they've released something called RES, which is a fully validating stateless Ethereum node with just 14 gig disk requirements built on RETH. And Raman says here, statelessness paves the way for scaling the L1 gas limit, scaling optimistic L2s, and for implementing native rollups to improve the L2 ecosystem security and interoperability. Now, as you guys know, stateless Ethereum is one of the end games of Ethereum. We want to be able to run Ethereum nodes off of a smartphone. We want to be able to run Ethereum validators off of a smartphone. Well, Paradigm took that, basically to the future and said, well, let's just release a fully validating stateless Ethereum node today. And that's what they've done. And they've shown you how it actually works here. There's a GitHub repository for you to go check out. But I'm really excited to see that this is already kind of a reality, because it's been a long time coming. I believe that stateless Ethereum has been talked about since as early as 2016. It's maybe even earlier than that. That's as early as I can remember. But yeah, very, very early on, it's been talked about. There's a lot of work being done on the core protocol itself to make statelessness much better than what it is. That's known as the Verge part of the roadmap. But outside of that, clients can still exist that act as these kind of stateless Ethereum clients and talk to these other full nodes. Now, they're not going to be fully trustless yet, but the goal is to get them to be fully trustless. So, as I said, you can run a validator, like a validator that stakes ETH on a smartphone and not need to run a bulky full node. You can run a light validator with a stateless Ethereum node and have pretty much like the same guarantees that you would running a full node, because of the fact that statelessness gives us those properties there. So very cool to see this. If you want to run this, you can. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check out there. Now, I did mention at the start of the episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the ecosystem. So I've got a few minutes left here to do that. I'm not going to ramble too long because I tend to do that, and I don't want to take up all of your time with my rambling here. But I think at this point in the crypto ecosystem, not just Ethereum, but like crypto broadly, we've reached the point where I think we've saturated the retail market. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that, as I was saying before, there's really only one reason most people come into crypto, and that's to speculate, right? That's to buy an asset, hope it goes up in value, and if it does, cash out and be on your merry way. Obviously, most people don't do that. They come in, they buy shit. They lose money on shit and then they go away. And we had that this cycle with meme coins. We had that last cycle with like NFTs and stuff. Every cycle we have something that people come in and speculate on and then go away. But the problem is that they've only ever come in to do that. We do have people that come in and use the technology, use the on-chain products, use the on-chain stuff, but it's a minority. Like if you were to say 1 million people, let's just say 1 million people came in to crypto in the last kind of, I guess, like bull market. Maybe let's look at the proper bull market, because this cycle that we've had has not really been a great cycle. Let's look at the last one. Let's say, and there's probably more than this, 1 million people came in 2021. How many of those actually did anything on chain? Probably very few percentage. Okay, well, how many of those did something on chain, but it was only like one or two things, like such as buying an NFT, and then after that, they just haven't used anything on chain in a few years now? Probably a lot, to be honest. So when you look at it through that lens, and you look at it through the lens of we've had many cycles, Bitcoin's worth 1.5 trillion, ETH is worth, 250 billion, the whole market's worth almost 3 trillion, right? When you look at it from that perspective, yes, compared to like stock markets and stuff like that, the valuations are still relatively low. But the problem is that most of the crypto assets are fundamentally worthless. Like they're actually worthless. They don't generate any revenue at all. They're failed businesses a lot of the time. They have absolutely no reason being worth what they're worth. But it's just like a lot of hangover there. And the biggest asset in crypto is Bitcoin, and that is only worth what it's worth because of its story, because of its narrative. It doesn't really have any fundamentals beyond that. Its fair revenue is paltry, so you can't say it's got cash flows. You don't have any right to those cash flows because there's no staking. Like you have to be a miner essentially, which is outside of BTC, the asset, which I know is considered a feature in Bitcoin, but just laying out the facts here. So when you look at it from that perspective, and this is why I was saying earlier that it seems like the biggest kind of onboarders into crypto over the next few years is going to be the institutions and traditional finance, who are going to incorporate a lot of this technology into their existing suites of products and then offer those products to their customers. And that's how most people will access crypto, I think, for the foreseeable future, if not forever, because most people, as I said, don't want to do things on their own. They want to outsource these things. And if crypto is just if crypto is the new financial rails, which I believe it will be, and I believe Ethereum will be at the heart of this, then those financial rails are going to be used by players that want to upgrade their systems. They want to make them more efficient. They want to make them more they want to save money. They want to offer more, a different and more exotic products to their customers in order to make more money. And that's what they're going to do. ETFs are just the beginning. There's going to be so many more, like tokenized real world assets, stuff like that, right? There's all that stuff coming. So if we look at the state of the ecosystem today, I think what you've got is a lot of the OGs, a lot of the people who got into this industry for the cypherpunk ethos. They're either in Ethereum, somewhat in Bitcoin, or they've gone, because a lot of this ecosystem doesn't look like what they actually like, because they don't care for the speculation, they don't care for the casino, they don't care for all the scams, which is fair enough. So when you look at it from that perspective, it doesn't really surprise me that a lot of the OGs are burned out. Like I've talked to a lot of them myself, and they're definitely pretty burned out. They've been around for 10 years as well. I mean, anyone would be burned out of being in this ecosystem for 10 years, but it's totally understandable there. So long story short of where I think the ecosystem is today, I think we're in the long kind of period of essentially as an ecosystem accepting that a lot of the vision of what we thought was going to play out maybe isn't going to play out as like a broader thing, and that we're going to be getting a lot of the adoption we want through these intermediaries bringing in customers. As I said, that goes against a lot of what we want to see, but there is a silver lining here. The silver lining is that if you look at the current financial system, to access the digital version of the current financial system, you have to use a centralized intermediary. You have to use a bank. You have to use some kind of third party. You cannot do it yourself. But on chain, on Ethereum, you do not have to do that. You have the choice. You can either go through a centralized intermediary, or you can go straight on chain. Yes, of course, if you're using stablecoins like USDC or USDT, you're still technically using something centralized, still technically going through an intermediary. But if you're using pure ETH on Ethereum, you are a fully self-sovereign individual accessing a digital financial system without any third parties. You can run the full node yourself. You can even go that far and talk to your own RPC. Yes, it's more involved. Yes, it's more technical. Yes, it's something that not many people are going to do, but the option is there. And that is the real killer, because we are building a global financial system, and a global financial system only works when it is permissionlessness, when it is not controlled by anyone, when it is open to everyone, when it is easily verifiable by everyone. That is why we so strongly believe in the property of decentralization. We so strongly believe in making sure that people can run a full node at home from their own consumer hardware. Even if most people don't do it, it is insurance, it is a check, it is a balance on the power of the network. And that is what we are here to build. That's what we have been building. That's what keeps me in Ethereum. But as I said, if we look at the state of the ecosystem, if we look at what and where adoption is going to come from, it's going to come from centralized intermediaries. It's going to come from the banks. It's going to come from the institutions that just incorporate this technology into their existing stacks, into their existing product suites, offer new products to their customers. And that's how most people will come on chain. So maybe not the ideal kind of environment, not the ideal kind of future that we all envisioned, but it is still one where crypto wins. It is still one where Ethereum wins in my mind there. Anyway, I think on that note, I've ranted enough today. I'm going to end that episode there. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on Friday. Thanks everyone.